Hey everyone, Lilith here. Welcome to another competitive Pokemon video. I've gone over individual metagames in the past, but I've never gone over every generation of a metagame at once. And that's what I'm going to be doing this time, with every ban in Subzero Used, which is the tier below Zero Used if you don't know, in Gens 1 through 8. I won't be going over Gen 9 because Gen 9 is current gen, making it subject to change every month, making it unpredictable with how long everything I say will remain true. A few other things. I will not be going over transitive bans or Pokemon or metagame aspects that were banned and then unbanned. This is only things that were banned in SU specifically and are still banned in SU. With all that said, there are 29 bans to get into, so let's get started with Gen 1. So the first ban in RBYSU is a kind of stupid one. So if we filter by highest special stat, we see the highest special stat is Magnemite's 95. Now, Magnemite is not particularly good in SU. I mean, it has a niche, but it's largely outclassed by the other electric types, Pikachu and Voltorb. But due to some VRs that put this Pokemon fairly low due to how bad it is against ground types, for a while, Magneton, aka an NU Pokemon with these stats, was in SU. 120 special, 95 defense. This thing was just way too strong for the tier. In fact, let me pull up some damage calcs. So, we've got Magneton. The set it would typically run is Thunderbolt, Reflect, Rest, Thunder Wave. And in case you're wondering, wait, that's useless against ground types? I know, but we'll explain that later. Here's its matchup against Ivysaur, okay? So Ivysaur will have Razor Leaf, and 6.5% chance to 3-hit KO, whereas Magneton's a 5-hit KO. Ivysaur beats it. No, it doesn't. Let's go over everything that can ruin this matchup for Ivysaur. For one, this is unlikely to be a 3-hit KO. It's probably a 4-hit KO. Magneton is faster, which means if you miss or fail to get a crit on any of these hits, you most likely just lose. In addition, Magneton can crit. That's also a problem. And keep in mind, Ivysaur is not guaranteed to crit with Razor Leaf. It's a 15 and 16 chance, and then a 19 and 20 chance to actually hit. So there are so many things that can go wrong and ruin this matchup to where Ivysaur only beats Magneton if they're both at full health about 1 in 3 times. Now, Weepinbell is in the tier. Weepinbell, it's better. You have a better chance of getting a 3-hit KO. Magneton isn't guaranteed to 5-hit KO you. But the thing about Weepinbell is it's terrified of paralysis. So it's not a reliable answer either. Really, your only potential answers to Magneton are ground types. So let's look at the ground types in the tier. Oh, they're terrible. Like, the best option you have, really, is Geodude. But, like, Geodude, well, for one thing, like, Magneton's a late game Pokemon. Geodude can't be just reserved for walling Magneton. There are other Pokemon it needs to face off against, like Golbat, like certain Muck sets, Charmeleon. Geodude is subject to being worn down, and not to mention, Ivysaur can just one-shot it, Weepinbell can one-shot it, Horsey can one-shot it. Like, none of these ground types have the longevity to be able to 1v1 Magneton in the late game. And so you don't even need to run a normal move. Like, you can brute force past electric resist, and the ground types don't last long enough to really threaten you. The only answer to Magneton is your own Magneton. I had a game when Magneton was in the tier that came down to 2 Magnetons PP stalling each other. It was just so ridiculous. And understand, I brought a Geodude. My opponent, I brought a Dratini. That was this electric. My opponent brought a Geodude. I think one of us may have brought a Diglett too. Like, the Pokemon you think would check it were there, and it still just came down to a PP war. And just understand, Magneton is an NU Pokemon. This is the equivalent of, if we go to Gen 1 PU, imagine this tier with these Pokemon. Imagine you just drop Zapdos into this tier, because it's the same thing. It's 3 tiers below. it would be so broken. It doesn't matter if you have like Nidoking and Nidoqueen or Graveler. Like, it's a Zapdos in a tier where the highest base stat total is Pinsir and Flareon. Magneton is one of 5 of the 29 bands I'm gonna cover where there legitimately was like you can build your like no counterplay. Like legitimately you can build your whole team around defeating this one metagame element, and it's not enough. It's not just unreasonable counterplay, it's legitimately no counterplay. Anyway, another ban in Gen 1 SU is Confuse Ray. The reason it's banned is because it's really annoying. Like, there's not so much you can really do about it. You have a 50% chance to hit yourself. It lasts 1 to 3 turns. Golbat is very fast, ties for 3rd fastest Pokemon in the tier, and it just would be really annoying. It wasn't like broken or anything. It didn't make Golbat overpowered. And banning Golbat, it would have been like amputating your arm because you got a paper cut, is an analogy I like to use. Like, Golbat is a healthy part of the metagame without Confuse Ray. Like, its speed tier is good. It's a nice, like, bulky Pokemon that can check a lot of these threats, like Charmeleon, Doduo, stuff like that. But it had this really annoying move that just made the meta not fun. And so we just decided to ban it. We play competitive Pokemon because it's fun. And so the metagame should be fun. So OBY had one ban that was overpowered and one ban that was uncompetitive. GSC has just one ban, but it was both overpowered and uncompetitive. And that ban is Swagger. I'm sure you've heard of Swagger before if you're familiar with competitive Pokemon. So what Swagger does, I'll just grab a random Pokemon, like everything can learn this by the way, raises the target's attack by 2 and confuses it. Now, that attack by 2 buff increases the damage from Confusion, meaning it's even more luck reliant than regular Confuse Ray. And in case you're wondering about regular Confuse Ray's distribution, not a whole lot of Pokemon get it. But Swagger was like universally distributed. So you could run it on Yanma, fastest Pokemon in the tier. You could run it on Meowth. Meowth was in the tier at the time. You could run it on Mankey. And like there were so many Pokemon that like banning a Pokemon wasn't going to solve the problem because there were so many Pokemon that used it. And one extra devious thing you could do with it is run Psych Up. If the opponent stays in, not only are they risking hitting themselves in confusion, you get to have a Swords Dance boost off of them. And you also run Substitute to fish for the hidden confusion. And like this was like common on Meowth. It would run like Swagger, Substitute, Psych Up, and like Return. And this is just so mean. There's very little you can do. There was one thing I did, which is like run Ladybug to like have a Miracle Berry to heal the confusion, run Thief to steal the target's item, and then Baton Pass the attack boost. And like you would run like Agility and I guess Reflect or something. But like, look at this. If someone is very seriously running this, and I mean this does work, I did actually do pretty well with this, but like if this is a serious set that someone is running, there's something wrong with the tier. I'm just saying. Moving on now to Generation 3, we have 2 bands to go over. The first one being Magby. Now, Magby, as you can see, has really high special attack and really high speed. And, I mean, it's not the fastest Pokemon in the tier. There's a fair amount that outspeeds it. It's also not, like, the strongest Pokemon in the tier, although it is pretty close. But really, the problem with Magby was its coverage. Like, you've obviously got your Fire Stab, Thunder Punch, you can run Psychic, Hidden Power Ice. Like, it had a lot of coverage options. There was Hidden Power Grass. The attack isn't even that bad, so you can run Cross Chop too. There were just so many coverage options that it was pretty much able to break through any defensive Pokemon. Like, nothing walled it. And while base 83 speed, there are a few Pokemon that can outspeed it and revenge kill it. Like, you've got Love Disc, you've got, well, this was banned before Staryu dropped, but you've got Tailo. Meowth outspeeds it. The biggest problem was that it could run Select Berry and Substitute, and you can't outspeed it anymore. Sorry, this was a problem, and it got banned. second, we have our second no counterplay ban, and that is sleep. This is technically not a transitive ban. I know I said I wouldn't be covering transitive bans, and ADVZU did ban sleep. However, ADVSU did not follow that sleep ban. We just later banned it on our own. And the reason we did that was because Butterfree with Compound Ice plus Sleep Powder was stupid. A lot of the tier came down to 2 lead Butterfrees, both clicking Sleep Powder, both having their Lumberries heal their Sleep Powder, and then both clicking Sleep Powder again. And it comes down to a speed tie. And that's not fun. That's not competitive. And while you might be thinking, okay, then ban Butterfree. No, the problem is you've also got Execute. You've also got Parasect. Heck, you've even got Meowth has Hypnosis. Again, multiple abusers to where banning a Pokemon wasn't going to help. In case you're wondering why I say no counterplay. Okay, suppose you run a Lumberry, okay? You Lumberry, you wake up after Butterfree Sleep Powders, it's bulky, you fail to kill, and then it just puts you to sleep anyway. Great job. Also, let's say you want to run Sleep Talk. I mean, that could help. No, not really, because Sleep Talk only picks a random move. And not only does it only pick a random move, if you Sleep Talk and then you switch out, that turn you spent using Sleep Talk does not count to sleep turns you've burned. This is only a thing in Gen 3. I don't know why it happens, but it does, and because it does, there is legitimately no counterplay to sleep in ADVSU, and thus it was banned. There are 29 bans to go over. 9 of them, over a third, are from DPPSU. So we've got a lot to go over, so let's get right into it. First off, Damp Rock is banned because Lumineon could outspeed everything while investing in bulk. Like, it would set up its own rain with Damp Rock, have these boosted surfs, it wouldn't need to run any speed EVs, and there was nothing to do. And it wasn't just Lumineon. Huntail could do the same thing. Huntail needed to run a bit of speed because it's slower, but Huntail also had better natural bulk and better offenses. So between both of these, Rain was just too powerful, and so Damp Rock is banned, and now both Lumineon and Huntail are healthy parts of the metagame. Next up, Gramble has these stats and Intimidate. What else is there to say? Oh right, it's Move Pool. It has like every move in the game. Like, the only Pokemon that walled it was Bronzor with Levitate. But even then, if you think that works, I'll just run Fire Punch. Congratulations, you lose. Like, it was way too powerful. The only saving grace was that it was slow, and thus pretty easy to revenge kill, but like, that was not enough to justify it staying in the tier. It was just too bulky, too strong, too versatile, incredibly overpowered. And now we have our third no counterplay ban, as well as the fastest ban, as in the one that was banned in the shortest time from becoming part of the tier, Slacking. So 100 speed, 160 attack. The only Pokemon faster than it is Lopunny. You run Choice Band, you max out your attack, you max out your speed, you click your big stupid stab button, or occasionally your coverage moves, which you have a lot of, and you just kill everything. Like, this is legitimately just outspeeds and one-shots the whole team. And like, okay, Truant, cool. So you kill something, you switch out, you kill something again, you switch out. It's just way too strong, no counterplay whatsoever. Even with Truant, there's just nothing you can do. It was a very justified ban. Next up, we have 3 Pokemon that were banned all at the same time. Plusle, Shelgon, and Vigoroth. Now, let's start with Plusle because it's the easiest to understand. You have Nasty Plot, you run a Slackberry, you're too strong, you're too fast, end of story. You just run this, and there's nothing you can really do. Like, I mean, okay, you can revenge kill it. Like, there is some counterplay. Like, there are defensive checks, but like, it's just too strong and too fast, and that's it. Shelgon is also very easy to understand. It's bulky, and it sets up Dragon Dance, and after it sets up Dragon Dance and spams Outrage, you just lose. There just aren't enough steel types to defensively check it. Like, these are the steel types. Oh, and by the way, you have Brick Break for those steel types anyway. It just hits too hard. 95 attack, 100 fence. Like, even the 50 speed, like, after a single boost, that's, like, let me just show you. 218, so after a boost, that's 327. I'm good at math. Lopunny is the fastest Pokemon in the tier. Give it a plus speed nature, and it barely outspeeds. Barely. So let's look at, say, the second fastest Pokemon that's actually usable, Pidgeot or Lumineon. Either one. Max out their speed. Oh, not fast enough. That means there is only one Pokemon that outspeeds it without a Choice Scarf when it's at +1. And then it just kills you with Outrage because this, with an attack boost and stab and 120 power, good luck. And it's bulky enough to always set up the Dragon Dance. Anyway, Vigoroth is probably the most nuanced of these. The biggest problem is that it's fast, bulky, and powerful. Like, there's no trade-off here. As you can see, it has a lot of coverage options. Probably the most problematic set was this one, where you use Bulk Up, you use Slack Off, and Return and Earthquake are great coverage. Bronzor walls you, but who cares? Ghastly also walls you, but again, who cares? I don't know why it's recommending a specially defensive set. You don't need bulk investment to pretty reliably set up the bulk up, and it's strong and it's fast. Really, it's not just that, because like I said, there are checks to this set. But the problem with Vigoroth was that it's very versatile. Like, you could run Choice Band. Maybe instead of Earthquake, you on the bulk up set you run Night Slash to hit Bronzor and to hit the ghost types. Maybe you run like 3 attacks plus Slack Off. Like, that's good. You can run Pursuit to trap things. Shadow Claw. Like, there are so many options Vigoroth had that like, there's no real way to check all of them, and its unpredictability combined with just how good all of its sets were made it so hard to handle. Next, we have another duo of bans, Combusken and Minun. Minun just basically replaced Plusle once Plusle was banned. And now, Minun did have significantly worse special attacks, 75 instead of 85. However, it was bulkier, meaning it could set up Nasty Plot more reliably, although it still wasn't that bulky. Personally, I really liked an Encore set with, like, Dry Pass, and, like, this was fun to run, and it was healthy for a while, but, like, people realized that it could just do the exact same thing as Plusle, and it was problematic when it did it as well, and so it just had to go. Combusken is very similar to Vigoroth. It's incredibly versatile, unpredictable. You can run physical, you can run special, there's agility, there's Swords Dance, there's Baton Pass, there's so many things it can do. One funny set I like is a Slackberry, like, substitute and reversal set. It wasn't very good, but, like, you have Blaze, and it's kind of fun. But really, the biggest problem with Combusken was just the most straightforward set. Flamethrower, Focus, Blast, Agility, Substitute. Congratulations, there's nothing that walls this. It's faster than you because of agility, you lose. It also had multiple priority moves. It has Quick Attack and it has Vacuum Wave. Don't know why Vacuum Wave isn't usually useless. So, like, very hard to check offensively as well. It's got great coverage moves, especially on the physical side, where it has, like, Night Slash and Rock Slide and Thunder Punch. It's just was simply overpowered. Next up, Sleep was banned for the exact same reason it was banned in ADV. This was just after Scarlet and Violet OU banned Sleep, so the precedent was set to just ban Sleep, and yeah, you had more Butterfree speed ties with compoundized Sleep Powder, hooray! There were less Sleep abusers in DPP than in ADV, but, like, Butterfree on its own was enough. Moving on to Gen 5, we have Munchlax. Munchlax is the first ban we're going to talk about that was banned for its defensive utility rather than being offensive. Simply put, this thing was just too bulky for the tier. There was just no way to break through it. You can try to set up on it, Whirlwind. It can rest, and it easily is able, especially with Eviolite, to survive in time to wake up. Even with Gen 5's busted sleep mechanics, that doesn't help you. And it just like forced the metagame into a stall dominated meta that just was not healthy and was not fun, and thus it was banned. Next up, we have our fourth no counterplay ban, the Heat Rock. Now, Heat Rock is banned for a pretty simple reason. Here's what you use it for. You take your Illumise with Prankster, you give it a heat, no, you don't give it a heal ball. You give it a Heat Rock, you use Sunny Day, then you have your Weepin' Bell, and Weepin' Bell has Solar Beam and Weather Ball, and you set up the sun, you pivot out into Weepin' Bell, and congratulations, you've won. Oh, right, growth. It has growth, which in the sun raises attack and special attack by 2 stages. Also, synthesis, which is a 2/3 heal in the sun. Oh, yeah, and it has chlorophyll. So you can't outspeed it, you can't really tank its hits, and even if you somehow beat the Weepin' Bell, there's Blossom, there is Heatmore, Magmar, so many Pokemon that abuse the sun, and there is just no way to beat them all. Oh, okay, fine. Technically, you could run Flareon with max HP, max special defense, and Wish Protect. And let's pull up a little damage calculator here. Yeah, okay. You win the matchup, even if it's at +2 special attack, and you can Wish Protect back up. There's just one problem. This Wish Protect Flareon set just loses to any non-Sun team. And like, even still, even if it 1v1s all the Sun Sweepers, it can't 1v6 them. So really, there truly is no counterplay. Up next, we have 2 bans that are very similar. They're 2 Pokemon that filled the same role and were banned for the same reason. And those are Butterfree and Mothim. Both of these Pokemon were banned because Tinted Lens plus Quiver Dance is ridiculous. You have this insanely powerful boosting move, you've got decent special attack, decent speed, and Tinted Lens means nothing resists it. Congratulations, you can destroy your opponent. Also, you've got Substitute and Roost on both of them, so yeah, there's that. They both ran basically the same set, and it's just overpowered on both of them. Like, the stats are slightly different, but this set is so strong that they were both banned at the same time for the same reason, so I'm just going over them at the same time. Now, there is one other Pokemon banned from Black and White SU for Quiver Dance, although this one's fairly unique. Dustox is interesting. While Butterfree and Mothim were just like you set up and then you destroy your opponent, Dustox is a bit slower and more like cautious. It doesn't have Tinted Lens, which means you can check it defensively with something like Swalot. However, that just wasn't enough because of the fact that it's so bulky. Like, you've got your reliable recovery. Notably, Bug Poison is a much better typing than Bug Flying. You are not quad weak to Stealth Rock, and you are immune to Toxic. Shield Dust protects you from the secondary effect of other Pokemon's attacks, so like you can't get burned by Scald, for example. No Body Slam Paralysis, no Lava Plume Burn, stuff like that. And with that, it could very easily just set up all the Quiver Dances it needed. Well, honestly, this is probably one of the bans that I find the least ban-worthy. However, I completely understand why it was banned, because it's a pretty terrifying win con, and the counterplay is fairly limited, even if it does exist. Anyway, back to the really stupid offensive Pokemon. Raticate has Guts and Stab Facade. Okay, so let's say you have this set. 261. Multiply that by 1.5. Hang on, let me get my calculator out. 391 attack. Let's go over to Gen 5 Ubers. Okay, Gen 5 Ubers. We sort by attack. Let's grab Groudon, okay? Groudon. So we said Raticate 391. Groudon, this Uber legendary with the same EV spread, 399. It's barely stronger, and that's with base 150. So like Haxorus, Landorus, Therian, Conkeldurr, well, okay, Conkeldurr also has Guts. Darmanitan, these Pokemon don't hit as hard as Raticate, and Raticate has this 140 base power stab move. Now, granted, this comes at the cost of dying to literally everything. Like, you're taking constant chip damage from hazards, from the Toxic Orb or Flame Orb, plus you are not that bulky. So, really, if you can get a hit in on Raticate, which you definitely could because you've got Scarf Mons. Let me just go back to SU. You've got just Mons that are straight up faster, like Lopunny and Fearow. Still, it was just such a devastating wall breaker. Oh, by the way, it has Swords Dance too. Just, in case an attack step between Haxorus and Groudon just wasn't enough for you, you can double it because why not? But yeah, the tier just doesn't have enough bulk to check an offensive threat this powerful, and its speed tier is so good. Even if it's not the fastest mon in the tier, it's pretty close. Moving on to Gen 6 SU, we only have 2 bands to go over. The first being Walrein. Walrein has these stats. The highest base stat total, aside from slacking, is Glaceon and Luxray. Its base stat total is only a bit higher, but they're very well distributed. Like, this thing, even when you hit it super effectively, which, by the way, is hard to do, there aren't a lot of Pokemon that hit it super hard, super effectively in the tier. Like, there are a few electric types, there's like one fighting type. Most of the rock types don't even run rock moves, plus they're scared of its stab. Grass types are also scared of its stab, so like, it's not an easy Pokemon to threaten offensively. In fact, you kind of can't. Like, this thing is just unkillable. Not as much as Munchlax in Gen 5, but pretty close. It would typically run like a set like this, Subtoxic, Ice Beam, Rest, and there's just very few Pokemon that can actually break this. And understand, it is not passive. 95 special attack stab, even uninvested, it hits fairly hard. It just was way too strong, way too bulky. Its stats were just out of the rest of the tiers league, and that's why it was banned. Pretty straightforward. An even more straightforward ban is Dragonair. Dragon Dance, Shed Skin. The end. We look at the fairy types. There certainly are technically fairy types in the tier. If we look at steel types, there's one usable steel type in the tier. This is a weird one because this is honestly the only Pokemon or metagame aspect in general I'm going to talk about that has like a solid answer. Spritzy shuts this thing down. Even at like +2, Spritzy just wins the matchup. +3, Spritzy wins. I guess you could run Iron Tail, but even then, like, Iron Tail can miss. This is at +3, which is still kind of hard to get to. Dragonair has one reliable answer that pretty much always beats it. The problem is, it 1v1s basically every other Pokemon in the tier. Shed Skin combined with Rest means it can fully heal itself. It's pretty good odds to wake up before usual with Rest, and then you click your stab moves. You have Extreme Speed for priority, you have Waterfall for coverage, and like, okay, suppose you're running the one Steel type, Wormadam Trash, and you just think, okay, this is going to check Dragonair. Normally it does, but what if it isn't running Extreme Speed? What if it's running Waterfall? Or heck, what if it's running Fire Blast? Like, Dragon Dance, Rest, Outrage is pretty set in stone, but the fourth move, there are a lot of options, and aside from Spritzy, there is nothing that beats all of them. In fact, there's nothing that beats multiple of them, really. So, yeah, very difficult to wall, dangerous setup sweeper. It was banned very quickly. Moving on now to Gen 7 SU, we have Vigoroth. This is basically exactly the same as it was back in DPP. And yes, the power level is higher. Like, DPP SU did not have Gabite, it did not have Pokemon like Gourgeist. DPP SU has legendary Pokemon with the Sylvales, it has Simisage, Trevenant, Wishy-Washy. Like, DPP SU didn't have any of those, like any Pokemon with actual stats, But Vigoroth has an upgrade too, Eviolite. It's 50% bulkier, and you have bulk up, you have slack off, you have return. Let's just go over all the potential fourth moves you could run. And just try to think of a Pokemon that checks all of these fourth moves, because there isn't one. Okay, you've got Brick Break, so Rock and Steel types are out. Earthquake, Rock and Steel types are out. Fire Punch to hit Steel types. You've got Nightshade in case you were planning on, using a Ghost type to beat it, like Gourgeist. Pursuit can be really mean. Sucker Punch, in case you were planning on using Priority to beat it. It's also fairly fast. Oh, and this also helps with the Ghost types. The main Ghost type is Gourgeist. Fire Punch also works for that. Heck, you could run Taunt, you can run Toxic, you could run Yawn. There are so many options for this fourth move slot, and it's just honestly impossible to check them all. Like, your best bet is Gourgeist. So, yeah, okay, you can break through Gourgeist, but it can Will-O-Wisp you, which is scary, but you can crit. Like, Night Slash has a high critical hit ratio, and also Slack Off. To be fair, yeah, Gourgeist beats it. But that's about it. The counterplay is very limited. Anyway, so I've gone over 4 bands that I consider to have legitimately no counterplay. Now it is time to go over something that was banned that I legitimately think was more overpowered than those 4 no counterplay bans combined. Like, arguably more toxic for the metagame, more problematic than the other 28 metagame aspects I've been talking about combined. Gen 7 SU, Damp Rock. Let me just break it down for you. Shell Smash, Swift Swim. This is its special attack. You lose. Like, it works very similarly to the Sun teams in Black and White. The difference being even more abusers, like Swift Swim. You've got all these Pokemon. You've got Armaldo, you've got Beartic. They're all so strong. And of course, you've also just, who needs Swift Swim? You can just run, a powerful water type, like Octillery, Frogadier, Relicanth, although I guess Relicanth also has Swift Swim. And by the way, one of the top weather setters, Electrode, second fastest mon in the tier, would run Damp Rock. It has Thunder with Stab. Legitimately, when Damp Rock was allowed, if you loaded into a game and you saw a rain team, you could just forfeit and save people the trouble. There is nothing you can do. You just lose on team preview. It was so ridiculous, and I remember just begging the council members, because I'm not council for Gen 7 SU, I'm council for some of the other ones, but not Gen 7. Please, this is not acceptable. And eventually it did get banned, and I'm highly grateful for it, because this was so stupid. You've got Prankster Illumise, you've got Fast Electrode. It just sets up rain, and you've lost. You've already lost the moment that rain dance goes off. Anyway, time for something that isn't as broken as Damp Rock, but I'd say it's more broken than Vigoroth. Light Clay is very similar. It, instead of increasing the duration of rain, it increases the duration of Reflect and Light Screen, which their main use was allowing Pokemon like Fracture. Fracture was the biggest abuser of this, to just set up safely. Because as you see, Fracture, 117 attack, you boost that and it's really strong. Problem is, it's not especially bulky. I mean, it does have Eviolite, which makes it fairly bulky, but this speed of 67 is pretty exploitable. Eviolite plus Reflect and Light Screen means Fracture could pretty reliably set up 1 to 2 Dragon Dances and just destroy you. Just look at all these coverage moves, doesn't it? Poison Jab, that's what it used to hit fairies. I don't remember exactly what set it ran. Hang on, Showdown usage. Fracture isn't banned. Okay, okay, well, this is a 4 attack set. Wait, no, it's not. Dragon Dance is not a... wow, So, wait. These are the same set. Never... Whatever. But it's not just Fracture. Okay, there are tons of setup sweepers in hyper offense that just love getting basically free turns. One funny thing you can do is run Regigigas with Substitute. It's honestly not that good. It's good in IU, which is the 2 below SU. It's not that good here. Even with Light Clay, it wasn't that good, but it was pretty funny to get to use Regigigas, and it was okay. But that's kind of beside the point. Ooh, Swoobat. Swoobat with Simple. That's very nasty. This is not a Pokemon you want to give free turns with a double Calm Mind, basically Gen 1 Amnesia, and then Stab Stored Power. This thing getting free turns is terrifying. And Light Clay allowed you to set that up pretty easily. You've also got like Arbok. You can't Toxic an Arbok. You've got Coil. That's really scary. You've got Blossom with Quiver Dance. You've also got Butterfree with Quiver Dance, although to be fair, Butterfree has compoundized Sleep Powder, so it doesn't especially need the help as just some of the other ones I've been talking about. Lots of very dangerous hyper offense Pokemon that Light Clay just allowed to set up way too easily to be healthy for the metagame. The main setup was you run an Electrode with Reflect and Light Screen, holding a Light Clay, and then you run a Fracture with Dragon Dance, and you would have like a strong offensive Pokemon like Simisage holding like a Z Crystal, like Fitinium Z Focus Blast was common, and this would just break through the defensive Pokemon, and then you sweep and you win. And now for the final topic of this video, the bans from Gen 8 SU. First off, Silvally Dark. As you can see, there are a lot of Silvalles that are perfectly fine in this tier, 11 to be exact. So what's so special about this one? Well, as you see, Silvally has really good stats. It also has multi-attack, which always matches your type, and is 120 base power. So 120 base power physical dark move off of these stats with Swords Dance. But like, every Silvally has that, right? Well, what not every Silvally has is perfect coverage to complement it. You've got U-Turn and X-Scissor for opposing dark types, you've got Psychic Fangs for opposing fighting types, and the fairy types in this tier, I mean, you've got this one, which is neutral to dark. You've got this one. Okay, these two wall you pretty effectively. This one is neutral to bug. So yeah, you just kill things. It's that simple. Well, admittedly, the 95 base speed tier isn't as crazy as it is in every other SU. Like, you've got a fair amount of Pokemon that are 100 plus base speed. Like, it's so strong and so fast that, like, very definitely broken. And other Silvally forms, like, say, Silvally Fighting, really doesn't have a good move for Ghost types, for example. I mean, you've got Crunch, but you're never gonna run that. Silvally Water. Like, if you're running physical, you don't really have a good answer for other water types. But like, Silvally Dark just had far fewer defensive checks than any of the other Silvalles, which is why it got banned, and none of the others did. Next up, Electric Seed. ZU banned Grassy Seed, which set a precedent that was very important because of Pincurchin. Now, Pincurchin, even with Lightning Rod, is a legitimately really good Pokemon. Like, aside from Electric Terrain, I like a set like this. It's a very good hazard setter. It's a good defensive Pokemon. Like, I like these 30% chance to status moves, and it has 2 of them. It hits decently hard, but you can also run Electric Surge with Terrain Extender. Now, this is actually a perfectly healthy playstyle. You've got stuff like Raichu with Rising Voltage, and it's like, yeah, these are very strong Pokemon, but you're running this, and like, you're stacking ground weaknesses, so like, if you get a sweep with it, you've kind of earned it. Like, there is plenty of counterplay. Like, grass types, for example, defensive grass types. You've got stuff like Appleton. You've got stuff like Shiinotic. Cradily was not really discovered until much recently, but if it had been, it would be pretty good against Raichu. Like, it's pretty good against Raichu now. But really, the problem wasn't the electric types themselves. Like, that was perfectly healthy. The problem was the electric seed itself, particularly on Pokemon like Thievul, or Thievul, however you say it. Unburdened, speed is doubled on held item loss, boost is lost if switches, gets new item or ability. Off of 90 speed, that basically means you outspeed everything. Choice Scarf Bolton, fastest Pokemon in the tier, max speed, and Choice Scarf. You've got 375 times 1.5 is 562, 306 doubled, 612. You just outspeed everything in the game. You do have Nasty Plot, and you have Dark Pulse, like, yeah. something I often run is Choice Scarf Thievo. Like, Choice Scarf is a really fun item, and with this Electric Seed Unburden, you basically have a better Choice Scarf that gives you more of a speed boost, does not have the drawback of locking you into a move, and gives you a defense boost on top of the speed boost, which is absurd. Oh, and by the way, Swoobat with Simple Electric Seed. So that's a +2 defense. You've got Calm Mind for the +2 special attack, +2 special defense. So that's 6 boosts. So you have basically a nasty plot boost with basically permanent screens, and you have a 140 base power stab move off of 1 turn of setup. And you're one of the fastest Pokemon in the tier. Like, this is not acceptable. Like, what do you do against this? You don't do anything. Understand, like, Thievul and Swoobat on electric terrain teams without Electric Seed are just like, why are you running electric terrain? Like, they don't synergize well at all. Swoobat, honestly, is hindered by it. So, like, the problem was not the terrain itself. The problem was the Electric Seed. And thanks to ZU doing a very similar thing with Grassy Seed, the precedent was set, and so it was a pretty straightforward ban. Next up, we have Heat Rock. Heat Rock, if you remember what I said about Black and White SU, it's not quite as bad. Like, the Chlorophyll Mons, like, you have your fair amount. You've got Shiftry, Exeggutor, Leafeon, you've got stuff like that. You've got some offensive fire types like Ninetales, Savali Fire, Combuskin with Speed Boost, so, like, you've got a fair amount of Sun Abusers. The problem is, the Sun Abusers that you do have, while not as strong as they were in Black and White SU, are still very strong. And unlike in Black and White SU, where pretty much all of the Sun Abusers were special attackers, and so you could run like a specially defensive Pokemon, like Ninetales is a perfect counter to the special attacking Sun Abusers. Flash Fire, Grass Resistance, great special defense, great speed, can use the Sun against the grass types. That doesn't work against stuff like this. Yeah, like, nice try. Still faster. Hits you really hard. Got Savali Fire, actually. Yeah, you can break through. And there is one other answer, which is you can run Snow Warning to replace the weather with your own weather. But, there's a problem with that. You are relying on beating a Sun team, which is going to have a lot of fire attacks, with a Grass Ice type that is slow and only moderately bulky. That is not going to work. It just isn't. That doesn't work. Congratulations. You lose. Like, you get hit by one fire move and you just disintegrate, and now where's your counterplay? Pokemon like Defensive Ninetales, like Abomasnow, like, they do win on paper. Well, okay, Abomasnow only wins on paper against, like, the grass types. It doesn't work against the fire types. But, like, they're very easy to wear down. And oftentimes on a Sun team, you'll have, like, 3 or 4 Sun Abusers. Like, these weather teams, like, this is, I believe, the 4th time I've talked about Weather Rock being banned. You can have one answer, one Pokemon that beats these Pokemon. The problem is that one Pokemon, 1 or 2 Pokemon, it gets overloaded. Like, you cannot check 4 or 5 sweepers. You just can't. Like, you can grab a PU wall for all I care. It's not gonna work. We've got one last ban to go over, Liepard. Well, first of all, it was an abuser of Unburdened Electric Seed back when that was in the tier. But even without it, you might think the problem is Prankster, and yeah, Prankster, Thunderwave, Prankster Trick, like, that's very scary. But really, the biggest problem is that its 106 base speed is very difficult to play around. There are 6 Pokemon that are faster than it, and one of them is Swoobat, which hates facing a dog type. There's also Persian and Dugtrio, which suck. So yeah, you're kind of just relying on Choice Scarf, or like one of very few Pokemon to outspeed it. And it has Nasty Plot or Home Claws. Take your pick. And these 88 attacking stats, they're not amazing by any means. Like, they're stronger Pokemon, but, like, they're not terrible. And so, like, you have these Prankster boosted boosting moves, and you've got Dark Pulse. Well, okay, you don't run Home Claws with Dark Pulse. That's stupid. You run Nasty Plot with Dark Pulse. What I said about Silvally Dark applies here. Like, the tier does not handle powerful dog types very well. It's why Thievul is so good. And while Liepard doesn't have quite the same coverage Silvally Dark did, at least on the special side, On the physical side, its coverage is really good. It has Gunk Shot for fairy types. It has Play Rough for fighting and dog types. So yeah, there's that. Oh, U-Turn is also a thing. You've got Sucker Punch. Stab Sucker Punch is insane. Encore, Prankster Encore is always fun. It just has such a good move pool and is so threatening offensively. Even with Electric Seed gone, so that like the most problematic stuff is gone, like you don't have this nonsense anymore. And even if it can't like use Prankster Sunny Day anymore, I don't really think anyone was seriously using that, like using Lipard as their sunsetter. I mean, I guess it could have worked, I don't know. But yeah, it's just, even with all of the stuff that made it super broken gone, it was still broken. So like, I mean, I'm talking about it in every Pokemon banned from SU video, so like, of course it got banned. Like, if it hadn't gotten banned, it wouldn't be in the video. So yeah, and there you go, 29 bans from SU from Gens 1 through 8. And just as a lightning round, in case you're curious about Gen 9 SU, the current Gen 9 SU BL is Clawitzer, Oricorio, Pow, Taurus, Paldea, Combat, and Veluza as of me recording this. That is definitely subject to change. In fact, we've got Oricorio Sinsu over here, which is stronger than Oricorio Pow. That's probably getting banned soon. I don't know. But yeah, stuff like this is why I didn't want to cover Gen 9 in depth, but I figured, in case you're curious, I might as well show you that real quick. Anyway, stay tuned for the next video. Thanks for watching, and bye.